As I mentioned at the beginning in the scriptures of this weekend, there are several different themes that could be developed. I'm only going to zero in on one, and that's the tiny mustard seed, the power of one. But if when you either read the scriptures or you heard them now, something else popped up in your mind, please continue thinking about that, because that perhaps is the way God speaks to us through our ideas and so on. I don't think you need me to tell you of the potential of a seed. One little seed, the mustard seed, or those of you who are gardeners, think about the tomato seeds you plant and what comes forth from those seeds. In fall, there's always an overabundance of tomatoes and zucchinis. But from a little seed comes all of this. Or the power of a seed. I'm sure you know that if a seed falls into the crack of a rock, eventually that seed will split the rock. Or the great story of Johnny Appleseed. You know, they say anybody can count the seeds in an apple, but only God knows how many apples are in the seed. And obviously the illusion is that we're the seeds of Christ. And we're called to bring forth that goodness in the world through us. But the problem we have, I think, is when you look at all the problems in the world, if you're like I am, I say to myself, what can I do to solve whatever the problem is you want to talk about? But we all have to do something, not just because we're good people, but because we're disciples. Story is told of a sparrow talking with the dove sitting on the top of a tree. And the sparrow says to the dove, "How much does a snowflake weigh?" And the dove laughs, says, "Nothing." So the sparrow said, "Let me tell you a story. Last winter I was sitting on this branch and it started to snow. Not a blizzard, just a nice gentle snow." And he said, "I had nothing else to do. So I counted the snowflakes that were falling on the branch next to me. And I counted to 3,741,952. But then when the next snowflake landed on the branch, it broke off." The power of one. Recently, I was reading a story about a woman who was an eloquent speaker, very learned, knowledgeable, very politically correct. In the middle of the speech, she said, "How many Polish people does it take?" And immediately the audience gasped. They thought, this wonderfully intelligent woman, very knowledgeable, very sensitive about all ethnic jokes, is she going to tell a Polish joke? And she said, "How many Polish people does it take to change a nation?" And she said, "One." You probably are familiar with Lech Walesa, shipyard worker who organized the trade union, organized the first free elections in Poland in over 40 years. Through his influence, a non-communist prime minister was elected, and it changed the course of Eastern European history. The power of one. But you also know that the power of one that doesn't do its job can also have great influence. Most airplane crashes are caused by a little malfunction. Recently, a couple years ago, there was an airplane crash. 97 people were killed, everybody on board, and they discovered after research it was one tiny bolt in the rudder that broke. Power of one. The spaceship Challenger, remember that one? That one failed because one small rubber part worth 15 cents could not function in extremely cold weather. The power of one. That's our challenge. That's what the seed of Christ is all about. I recently ran across this poem, and as I say, we all say we can't do anything. One song can spark a moment One flower can wake a dream. One tree can start a forest. One bird can herald spring. One smile begins a friendship. One hand clasp lifts a soul. One star can guide a ship. One word can frame the goal. One vote can change a nation. One sunbeam can light a room. One candle wipes out darkness. One laugh can conquer gloom. One step must start each journey. One word must start each prayer. One hope can raise our spirits. One touch can show you care. One voice can speak with wisdom. One heart can know what's true. One life can make a difference, and that life may be you and me, us. The power of one. So on Father's Day, we think about the power of one, the power of fathers. So often we talk today about absent fathers in homes, and they've done research on this. Somebody made recent search on the last 27 mass killings in the country, and they found out that 26 of those people did not have a father that was present. But even if the father is present, we men are not good at relationships. So many fathers work extra hours to support the family, but they're not home very much. They're there, but they're not present. And again, research says that a father who is present with his family, eats dinner with his family, prays with his family, helps with homework, the majority of those children do not end up with any drug or alcohol or juvenile delinquency problems. The power of one. To salute to you, fathers. I use this every Father's Day because I can't find anything better. Irma Bombeck's book, If Life is a Bowl of Cherries, What Am I Doing in the Pits? You don't love me. How many times have your kids laid that one on you? And how many times have you as a parent resisted the urge to tell them how much you do? Someday when my children are old enough to understand the logic that motivates a father, I'm going to tell them, I loved you enough to bug you about where you were going, with whom, and what time you would get home. I loved you enough to insist that you buy the bike with your own money that we could afford, but you could not. I loved you enough to be silent and let you discover that your hand-picked best friend was really a creep. I loved you enough to make you return the candy bar with a bite out of it to the drugstore and confess, I stole this. I loved you enough to stand over you for 2 hours while you cleaned your bedroom, job that would have taken me 15 minutes. I loved you enough to let you see anger, disappointment, disgust, and tears in my eyes. I loved you enough not to make excuses for your lack of respect or your bad manners. I loved you enough to admit that I was wrong and ask for your forgiveness. I loved you enough to ignore you when you said, well, every other father lets their kid do this. I loved you enough to let you stumble and fall, hurt and fail. I loved you enough to let you assume your own responsibility for your own actions when you were 6 and 10 and 16. I loved you enough to figure out you would lie about the party being chaperoned, and then I forgave you for it when I found out I was right. I loved you enough to shove you off my lap, let go of your hand, be mute to your pleas, so that you could learn to walk alone. I loved you enough to accept you for what you are and not what I want you to be. But most of all, I loved you enough to say no when you hated me for it. That was the hardest part of all. Happy Father's Day.